Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? How has everybody's day been? This is the Unusual Engineering Careers panel. My name is Sophia, and I'll be the host for this panel. So welcome, everybody. I would like to begin this by gratefully acknowledging that Science World is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. So we'll start this off with a quick introduction from our amazing group of mentors. And after that, we'll have a discussion and you'll all be able to ask questions to the mentors. You can put these questions in the chat at any time if you'd like. Our technician today is Stefano, and he will be monitoring the chat. If you have any technical issues, Stefano will be happy to help. We ask that you keep all of your comments in the chat relevant and respectful to all of the topics that we're discussing. All right, so let's start meeting the mentors. So, Erica, could you start off by introducing yourself and talking about your job a bit?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Erica. I was born in Calgary, Alberta, and I went to the University of Victoria for my electrical engineering degree. From there, I did some co-op jobs, and I ended up in the field of construction with Kiewit, my company. So right now I'm actually in Prince Rupert, BC. We're building a terminal expansion. So I work as a field engineer there and sometimes a superintendent. So we are basically moving a lot of rock and putting in some infrastructure here to expand the terminal.
Thank you for sharing, Erica. Now, Michelle, what about you?
Hi. So I'm Michelle. I am an electrical engineering technologist. I went to school for that at BCIT, and I work at a company called Sabre, and we do motion control devices. It's very similar to robotics. So my job is to build the devices. I put all the wires into the mechanical builds. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Michelle. Now, Andrea, could you share?
Thank you there, Sophia. Hi, my name is Andrea. Originally born in Kamloops and grew up in Richmond. Went to Queen's University in Kingston for school. And I'm a senior geotechnical engineer. So I work on bridges and I work on tailings dams. I've worked in underground stations for light rail transit in Toronto. So those are some of the things I deal with. My world is a sandbox.
Thank you, Andrea. Now, last but not least, Jenna.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jenna Espritch, and I'm a biomedical engineer by training. I grew up and did a lot of my schooling on the East Coast, so at the University of Guelph, Queen's University, and the University of Toronto, all in biomedical engineering, but in different aspects of it. So that ranged from working on biomechanics projects to working with cells and tissue. And what I do now is I teach in that area of biomedical engineering. So I teach a lot of different courses to university students in a new developing program. It's really exciting.
All right. So, what is your favorite thing about your job? Erica, could you start us off?
So for me, being in construction a little bit different, I do get to apply my engineering skills kind of to my day to day, but building these mega jobs is really probably my favorite part. I've got to watch a job basically go from the ground, up, and every day is different. So that's kind of what my favorite thing is, the construction sites are so fluid and dynamic that, there's just endless opportunities really. And so every day is a new day. And that's really my favorite part about it.
Mine is actually similar to Erica. I'll jump in there. And I love being able to drive past some of the bridges that I've done the foundations for in Vancouver. I worked on the Portman Highway 1 project for 4 years, and it's nice to be able to drive past that and see the usage that and the impact that the community gets from that infrastructure.
Thank you, Andrea. Now, Michelle, what about you?
I have a few things that I really love about my job. One of the things is that I work on an awesome team with awesome people. So I really enjoy going to work each day and getting to see my coworkers. And that sort of ties into another favorite thing, and that's we do a lot of specialized devices. So a lot of, I guess, sort of specialized robots that our customers will ask us, oh, can you make it do this? Can you make it do that? So they have all sorts of requirements that they would like. And my team and I, we sort of troubleshoot together to make sure it gets done. So similar to what's been said is that every day could be a new adventure of, what we're going to work on and how we're going to tackle the problems. And also just want to throw it in there. We have lots of work dogs. So that's my other favorite work thing is the dogs that hang out with us.
Thank you, Michelle. Now, Jenna.
Yeah, I also have a couple favorite things. Hard to pick one. I think one thing that I really like is that because I teach in biomedical engineering and because it's such a cutting edge area of engineering, that I'm always learning new things in order to be able to teach it and figuring out what do we need to train our students to do for jobs of the future that we kind of can't predict yet. So that's really exciting. I'm still learning, and that's always fun. And then my second favorite part is that I get to connect and mentor with so many different students all the time and learn what makes them excited about the work and kind of figure out how to best teach. So, those things.
Thank you, Jenna. Now, Erica and Michelle, you both have jobs that have to do with electrical engineering, but Michelle, you're a technologist. So what would you say is the difference between the two?
I think a big part of it is that the technologist program is shorter than the engineering program. So I did a 2-year program, and I believe the engineering programs are usually 4 years. So it's sort of like a shorter condensed. We also focus on a lot more sort of hands-on lab work. And this is my understanding is that the full engineering program also additionally covers a lot more theory. So a lot more classes in, the math and the science behind whatever particular field of engineering you're in.
Yeah, definitely the design side of it is a lot heavier, I think, in the engineering side. My program was 5 years, but that also included my co-ops, which are internships.
All right. So what is your favorite project that you've ever been involved in? Why don't we start with Jenna this time?
Sure, yeah, that's a tough one. But I think working on some of my grad school projects were some of my favorite, most exciting projects. And those were in the area of tissue engineering. And if you're not familiar with what that is, we have lots of different tissues in our body, different organs. One example would be your cartilage tissue in your knee. That helps you when you're walking to kind of cushion that kind of bone moving against bone. So if any of your older relatives complain about their joints hurting or their knees hurting, it's because of their cartilage, likely. So I worked on a project where we took cells from the cartilage and then we tried to regrow that in the lab. And that was really exciting. So probably those projects were my most favorite.
Thank you, Jenna. And what about you, Andrea?
Yeah, so I can't name it or nail it down to one project that is my favorite because they're so varied. My work has been from transportation to commercial developments to mines, and they're all very different. So, one of the projects that really helped focus me into geotechnical engineering was the Portman Highway 1 project. I spent 4 years on that project, designing, and it really showed me how interconnected all the different streams of engineering are in one project. You're working with electrical engineers, environmental, structural engineers, drainage, highway alignment. There's so many things that are interconnected, and that one really showed that. So not necessarily my one project, but it was probably one that is a highlight for me.
And what about you, Michelle?
So I really love my work and enjoy all the projects I get to do. But I think one of my favorite projects that I've done is in my volunteer work. So one of the things I do outside of my job is I volunteer with a group called Girls Rock Camp Vancouver, where we teach, female identifying and non-binary youth to make music. We teach them to play instruments. But one of the things I get to do is I teach youth to make guitar pedals. So I'm taking my electrical engineering technology background and applying it to music. So the circuitry and the wiring of guitar pedals and some other musical instruments. And so I've done sessions with Girls Rock Camp teaching, as young as 8 years old to make their own, guitar pedals. And that for me was probably one of the funnest things I've ever done.
Thank you. Now, Erica, what was your favorite project?
So I have been on a few projects and they're all been very different. So it might seem crazy, and maybe this is where the unusual engineering career part comes in, but my very first position, I was a drill and blast field engineer. So I actually got to line up explosives and blow out a quarry and fly a drone around and videotape it. So that was my favorite part. My favorite project so far. It was so different and it was a lot of fun. So yeah.
What would you say is the most challenging part of your job?
Clients. And within engineering, as you progress further, you're always dealing with people, and people can sometimes be difficult when you're dealing with contracts where a lot more, then that sort of can be a difficult conversation. So having those difficult conversations can be the most challenging part.
Erica, what about you?
I think just being in construction in general in itself is a challenge for for young women and women in general. So, but it's been interesting to be kind of a part of the swing, and recently there's really been a big focus on trying to get more women into construction and engineering. So, it definitely is a challenge in trying to get the right outreach, kind of like these types of events. If they happen more often, then maybe there's a better chance of getting more ladies into engineering.
What about you, Jenna?
Yeah, so I can talk about a challenge for when I used to do wet lab work in a lab. So working with cells are really can be unpredictable. So that's a big challenge sometimes, is you can plan out your experiment really well, and then sometimes you go to look at your cells under the microscope, or even just visually, and you see that they've been infected with bacteria, and then you can't do your experiment. So sometimes, just like people, cells can be unpredictable and finicky. So that can be a big challenge that you just have to manage. And then I guess more in the work that I do now as a teacher, I think everyone who's listening, if you're a young student, you probably remember you're experiencing how difficult learning can be virtually, and how hard it is to teach and learn when we're at a distance from each other. So that's a big challenge that we're still managing, but figuring out ways to be engaging and have it still be interesting and exciting.
And what about you, Michelle? What's something that you find challenging?
I think one of the biggest challenges in my field is time limits. So because my company makes things for clients that they've requested, and they'll usually, give us a timeline of when they need them, trying to get very complicated projects built and functioning properly. So actually working in very sometimes in just like a couple of days, sometimes just one day. That's probably one of the biggest challenges. But I think the most important part is that, as I mentioned before, I love my team that I work with. So teamwork is basically how we overcome that hurdle. So we really try to help each other out so people aren't struggling too much.
I got a question for the other girls. I'm wondering how you got involved in, like, what interested you originally in your career paths?
Well, for me, I knew I liked sciencey stuff. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to do after high school, I just had a conversation randomly with my dad, and he mentioned that one of his coworkers, their daughter recently went to the University of Guelph, and they were studying bioengineering, and they were working with prosthetics and prosthetic limbs and biomedical devices like pacemakers and things like that. And I thought that was so interesting, and I hadn't heard of someone working in that area before, so it was sort of a late discovery. But then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and try that. And then later on, when I was in my program, I also happened to hear about tissue engineering, and I thought, oh wow, you can actually kind of build an organ, or that's the idea anyways. So that's what got me in.
I took a really weird route. When I was in grade 9, we had a course in our high school called Scimatech. So science, math, and technology that everybody had to take. And it's essentially engineering 101 in grade 9. And there was some really good teachers in my school in sort of the technology department who helped foster that interest in technology and math and science, and encouraged me to do drafting and electronics. And I did electronics, and like, oh, I want to be an electrical engineer. Got into school, I'm like, nope, it's going to be civil, and like, I'm going to build bridges. And then I got into my master's, and I ended up doing a thesis on sort of, it's a structural and a geotech mix, and ended up taking a job with a geotech firm and have learned to love it, with the part science, part art aspect of geotechnical engineering. Lots of people refer to it as a dark art. So that's, we all have our 8 balls on the side of our desk.
I was just going to say I kind of got into the electrical field by accident as well. Prior to working in this field, I was doing, my background was in architectural drafting and design. And I did that for a long time, but I decided I was going to go back to school for some kind of engineering technology, and I was going to go into structural engineering technology. And then I saw the electrical program and realized that it could, I could learn to do things like make my own guitar pedals or, some fun projects like that. And just by chance, I ended up changing my mind at the last minute and going into the electrical field. So yeah, you never know which way, like where life's going to take you and which path you're going to end up following.
Erica, how did you decide on your job?
I have kind of the same story. It was a happy accident, I guess. I was fortunate when I was younger. I had some family influence, good influence. They had never pressured me to be an engineer or anything like that, but I did look up to them, and I had an uncle and my mom and my grandpa as well. So I think I just wanted to take after them. And at some point I realized that it's what I wanted to do and that I could make money and live by myself. So that was a big driver of that too, to move away for school and be on my own a little bit. So, and just be able to take care of myself. So that was probably the first driver. And then once I got into university, after the first year of doing general everything, I figured out that electrical was the way I wanted to go. And then it's kind of just here from there.
Is there any advice that any of you would give to somebody starting out in your field?
Communication skills. Engineering is very much, a lot of people think it's just technical, and it is very much that. There's this huge technical aspect to solve these massive complex problems that we tackle. But if you can have a really good solution, but if you can't communicate it to someone, it's not going to be effective. So communication, verbal and written, is something I underestimated when I was younger, and I actively avoided classes where I'd have to write an essay. And now that has bit me in the butt. So 90% of my job is communication.
I guess I can add communication, I think, as well, is something you need to succeed. But I think patience as well, and persistence, like that this stuff doesn't come overnight. No one's expecting you to know everything about how to do the work in my field and any field immediately. So as long as you're kind of patient, if you're doing experimental work, because it's not always predictable and it can take extra time, and persistent, working away at problems when initially there's no obvious solution. You try to be scientific and systematic about it, trying to figure out where are all these possible places that it could go wrong, and kind of testing them one by one. There's nobody that I know that's in this field or successful that is just always getting it. There are failures that you'll have, and it's just kind of how you pick yourself up after that and keep going that I think makes you really successful.
I would like to echo those things as well. I think definitely communication is huge, patience is huge, and also it's okay to make mistakes. So being kind to yourself, and just sort of understanding that making mistakes is a huge part of the learning process. But definitely for new people that I'm training, I always encourage them to ask questions as well. I think a lot of new people come in and are worried that they're supposed to know all the answers to everything, but I'm always happy. And the people that are training new employees, especially if they're fresh out of school, we're always happy to answer questions and help them out and try to mentor them. So I would say don't be afraid to ask questions and just communicate.
What about you, Erica?
Yeah, I think Michelle kind of stole that one away from me there, but definitely, in a faster paced environment, if you're new, and again, you're not expected to know everything, but I would expect that you would ask questions if you get stuck and you don't kind of spin in a circle for a few hours. The great thing about, I guess, like my company, for example, is there's so many resources and people and subject matter experts in the company that you can ask. So, if you're stuck on something for more than an hour, I would say it's time to time to ask a question for sure. And there's just so many people to network with and that can help you out. So that would be really important if you're just getting into the field.
What's something about your job that most people wouldn't know about?
I guess I'll take that one for the first shot here. I guess people maybe might not know that, well, I work in construction, so we're actually building, we're building all the drawings that the engineers are giving us. I guess secondly from that, I'm actually involved in the project kind of management side of things, the more the project controls. There's a lot of quality aspects to what I'm doing. We have to be the technical resource in the field for the trades, the carpenters, the pipe fitters, the operators, things like that. So there's a lot more to it, I think, than meets the eye for sure. I myself, I get involved in the cost, the production, the quality, kind of all that other stuff as well.
I could go next. Something that people might not know about working with cells is that just like we need to eat and we also go to the bathroom, get rid of waste, you have to do the same thing with cells. So you have to feed them this like kind of nutrient, protein, water slurry. And then you also have to remove that after a couple of days to make sure that the cells are happy and alive and thriving. So that's something you probably wouldn't know or wouldn't think that would be involved. And then something you might not know about your teachers or professors is that they don't know everything. Or maybe you already are onto that one, but everyone is, they have more experience than you. They've been around longer than you, but they still are learning and growing. And I think that's something important to keep in mind, that you never reach a point where you know all of the things. There are always things to figure out and learn. So if you recognize that in other people, you can also understand that and give yourself, some kindness to not know everything.
I'll take the next one, I guess. Something cool about my job is the amount of, or the ability to travel. And this can be from, I've been to a construction site up in Northwest Territories working on a diamond mine there. We have people who have to go do geohazards analysis, so they're hiking up and down slopes, or pipeline inspections, so they're hiking through cow fields, or they're going to places that are far afield to go look at an open pit, such as, in Mongolia, or they're going and building a dam in the Dominican Republic, or they're inspecting dams somewhere else. So the ability to travel and join that up with work is pretty interesting.
I think I'm have a similar answer to what Jenna said, in that one thing that people don't know about my field and that my work is that you don't have to go in knowing everything. So every day I am learning, adding to the skills that I already have, but I'm also learning new information. I went in with an electrical background to, build these motion control and robots devices, but I've learned a lot of mechanical stuff on the job. So every day, every week, every month, I'm learning things. And it's the same thing with my mentors at my work, that we're constantly learning new things. We're always improving our skills. And like Jenna said, nobody has the ultimate answer. Like sometimes I'm with the head of the electrical department, and we're together trying to figure out what the heck is going on with, a circuit board. So just you will constantly be learning things, and that's really exciting.
What would a typical day look like for you?
I will quickly answer this one. I start my day very early. I'm not gonna lie, I drink a lot of coffee in the morning. I go around our building and I find all the dogs that are in, and I go and I pet all the dogs. Then I will, sort of look at all my tasks that I have to get through with my team. So, looking at what needs to be built, what orders are going out, what needs to be finished, what needs special attention, what needs like further design, I guess. And then, we'll have meetings in the mid-morning, and then pretty much through to the afternoon, it's kind of just getting down into the nitty-gritty of building things, getting dirty, doing our assemblies, and then sort of checking in at the end of the day to see where we're at and where we'll be the following day. And then, maybe more coffee and petting more dogs after that.
I shouldn't even talk about my typical day because I don't have a typical one, but unfortunately my day is really long. So it starts early in the morning, just like Michelle. I have to sit with our team to do like crossover with our night shift crews that are in. We look at all of our plans for the day, tie up any loose ends. We kind of have to work with the ebbs and flows of the site. So there's a lot of things to do. I could be doing field walks. I could be doing cost reports. I could be working with our engineers on the design. There's, with any problems or issues that are on site. But yeah, every day is different. So I guess I can only kind of talk about what I do day to day. So.
I can go next. So my typical day now is mainly spent doing, project meetings, advising on technical, advising on projects, technically doing discipline. So I'm the soil mechanics discipline lead at my company. And so there's training initiatives, there's all these other administrative or R&D projects or quality projects that I need to make sure that are running along. Now, early in my career, my career was, typical day was quite different. It could have been similar to Erica, being out in the field, or doing design, so a lot of analytical work, so analysis, like, oh, here's a slope, let's check whether or not it's going to be stable. So those are sorts of things. Like, my career has progressed from doing more of that analytical work to more the meetings and communication side of things.
Yeah, I also don't have a very typical day, and I guess it depends on what season it is, because I teach kind of heavier in the terms than it is outside of the terms. So if I'm in a term, which I am in right now, I will probably teach every day at some point for probably an hour and a half. If I have a lab course, they're usually longer and they're more hands-on. I have a lot of coordination tasks that I have to do. So talking with teaching assistants or coordinating with other instructors to make sure that our courses make sense together. Meeting with students who want to ask questions about their different courses, preparing new material to teach, trying to figure out new strategies and ways of teaching. Those are basically what my typical days. And I don't generally start at any one particular time, which is a nice perk of my job, is that it's quite flexible in hours of the day that I can work, as long as I can make it to the lecture that I'm teaching. If I wanted to, I could, because all my lectures are in the afternoon, I could wake up really late, I could teach, and I could, end later if I wanted to. So that's a nice perk.
Is there any final advice that you'd like to give to the girls watching this?
Be curious. Always be curious, and be open to new opportunities. My path has not been ever straight. Whenever I've thought about, this is where I'm going to be and this is where I'm going to go, it hasn't turned out that way, but I'm very happy with where it's turned out. And my job also requires lifelong learning and that curiosity to understand why the ground behaves the way it does.
I guess I would say, follow where your interests are, and those are probably going to change over time. So it's okay if you start in one place and then move to a completely different area. Listen to yourself, reflect to see if what you're doing makes you happy. Don't change it just because you had an off day or an off week. Take some time to make that decision, but I think listening to yourself and following what you're interested and excited with is a good strategy.
I'll just add in, be kind to yourself. I think we have a tendency to doubt ourselves when we're going through the learning process, and sort of we can feel a bit down on ourselves when we're not grasping concepts. So again, ask lots of questions, reach out to your peers, reach out to your mentors, and just be kind to yourself and just know that you can do this.
Yeah, I think what everybody said is awesome. And if you're watching the video, like, you're already taking one more step to figure out what you're interested in. So go do some research and watch as many of these videos. Dive into the depths of YouTube and see what you can find. And try and get your hands dirty, I guess, and talk to as many people as you can, and that will hopefully point you in the right direction that you want to go.
All right, it looks like we are almost out of time now, so thank you to everybody that joined us to watch this today, and huge thank you to all of you mentors for coming out and sharing your stories. So
thank you to Science World for hosting.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.